The desert sand stretched endlessly under the burning sun. Dr. Park Minji wiped sweat from her forehead and looked at her scanner again. The reading was impossible, but it was there. Something massive lay buried beneath their feet. "Are you sure about this?" her brother Hyun asked. He stood beside the transport vehicle, his uniform marking him as Earth Defense Militia. "If the Gorath find us out here with unauthorized equipment, they'll kill us." Minji knew he was right. The Gorath Confederacy ruled Earth now. They had ruled it for 500 years. Humans were not allowed to dig in forbidden zones. They were not allowed to study the old times. They were definitely not allowed to search for ancient military technology. But Minji had found something in an old data file. Coordinates, a location, a promise written by people long dead that something important waited here. "Start digging," she said. Her team of 12 worked through the day. The desert fought them. Sand collapsed back into every hole they made. The heat was cruel, but as the sun began to set, their drills hit something solid, something metal. Minji's heart raced. She jumped into the pit and brushed sand away from the surface. The metal was smooth and dark, not rusty, not damaged. After 500 years buried in sand, it looked almost new. "What is it?" Hyun called down. "I don't know yet, but it's big, really big." They dug through the night. By morning, they had exposed a section of hull plating 50 meters wide. Strange symbols covered the surface. Minji recognized them from her secret studies of the Forbidden Era. These were human military markings. "Old human military markings. This is a ship," she whispered. "A warship." One of her team members found a panel. It looked like a door or a hatch. Minji approached it carefully. Her hands shook as she touched the surface. The metal was cool despite the desert heat. Something clicked. The panel glowed with soft blue light. A voice spoke clear and strong in a language that was almost forgotten.
Old Korean.
Pure and formal. Biometric scan complete. Genetic markers detected. Descendant pattern recognized. Initiating emergency revival protocol. "What did you do?" Hyun grabbed Minji's arm. "I don't know. I just touched it." The sand around them began to shake. The ship was waking up. Lights flickered along the hull. Panels that had been hidden for centuries began to glow. The hatch in front of them opened with a hiss of ancient air. "We need to go inside," Minji said. "Are you crazy?" "We should run." "Run where?" "The Gorath satellites probably already detected this energy signature. If we run, they'll catch us in the desert and kill us anyway. Our only chance is inside." Hyun looked at his sister. Then he looked at his team. Young humans, all of them. Born into a world where they were told they were weak. Where they were told to obey. Where they learned that humanity's glory days were just myths. "Everyone inside," he ordered. "Now." They climbed through the hatch into corridors that had seen no light for 500 years. But the ship remembered its purpose. Emergency lights flickered on. The air system hummed to life. Everything was covered in dust, but it all still worked. Minji followed the corridor deeper into the ship. The design was beautiful, efficient, powerful. This was nothing like the crude ships humans were allowed to build now. This was from the time when humanity fought as equals against the stars. They found the medical bay, and there, in rows of glass cylinders, they found them, hundreds of pods filled with frozen people. Most were dark and dead, but some still glowed with soft blue light. "They're alive," Minji breathed. "People from 500 years ago are still alive." The central pod began to change. Frost melted from its surface. Liquid drained away. The figure inside stirred. The glass slid open and a man stepped out. He was tall and strong, with gray in his hair and eyes that had seen too much war. He coughed and looked around. His eyes focused on Minji. "Status report," he said. His voice was rough from centuries of sleep. "Where is the fleet? Did we hold Neptune?" Minji felt tears on her face. She didn't know how to tell him. "Sir, we lost the battle, the war, everything." The man steadied himself against the pod. "How long was I asleep?" 500 years. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The man closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were hard as steel. "Who are you?" he asked. "Dr. Park Minji, I'm an archaeologist. I found your ship. And the Gorath, they rule Earth, they rule everything. Humans we're not free." The man was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened his back and walked to a wall panel. His fingers moved across it like he had done it 1,000 times before. "Computer, identify me." The ship's voice responded immediately. "Admiral Kang Daeho, command code confirmed." Welcome back, Sir Admiral. Minji's breath caught. She was standing in front of an actual admiral from the old Earth military. The stories were true. Baekdu, the admiral said to the ship, "How many of my crew survived cryosleep?" 247 pods remain viable, Admiral. Wake Commander Yoon first, then medical staff, then engineering. Yes, Admiral. Hyun ran into the medical bay, his face pale. Ships, Gorath Enforcer ships are coming. 4 of them. Admiral Daeho looked at him. Your military? Yes, sir. Lieutenant Choi Hyun, Earth Defense Militia. Can you fly, Lieutenant? Yes, sir, but this ship is 500 years old. The systems were built by humans for humans, the Admiral said. He moved to leave the medical bay, and despite just waking from 5 centuries of sleep, he walked like a man going to war. She'll answer to us. Get your people to the bridge. Time to see if the old girl still has teeth. They ran through the corridors. The ship was coming fully alive now. More lights, more systems. The floor vibrated with power that had been sleeping for half a millennium. The bridge was magnificent. Screens covered the walls. Command chairs waited for crew that had been dust for 500 years. Admiral Daeho sat in the center chair like he had never left. Baekdu, emergency combat protocols. Override code Daeho Alpha 07. The ship's response was immediate and eager. Acknowledged, Admiral. Primary weapons charging. Estimated time to full capacity, 4 minutes. Shall I deploy countermeasures? Not yet. Let them get closer. I want them to see what they woke up. Minji watched the screens as the Gorath ships approached. They were large and powerful. Modern warships designed to enforce the occupation. Against them, one ancient ship with a skeleton crew. It should have been hopeless. But Admiral Daeho smiled. It was not a kind smile. They think we're salvagers with stolen tech, he said. They think this will be easy. Lieutenant Hyun, take weapons control. Dr. Park, you're on communications. Everyone else find a station and hang on. Admiral, I don't know how to use these systems, Minji protested. You'll learn. Humans are good at learning under pressure. The Gorath ships opened communication channels. Their commander's voice was full of contempt. Primitive humans, you have activated forbidden technology. Power down immediately or be destroyed. Admiral Daeho leaned forward in his chair. Baekdu, open a channel. Full power. Channel open, Admiral. This is Admiral Kang Daeho of the Terran Human Space Navy warship Indomitable. You are in violation of human sovereign space. Leave now or be removed. There was silence, then laughter from the Gorath commander. You dare threaten us with one ancient wreck? One ancient wreck with charged weapons and a very angry crew. Last chance. The Gorath response was to open fire. Baekdu, evasive pattern Delta. Return fire on my mark, the Indomitable moved. She was old, yes. But she was built in an era when humanity fought for its survival. She was built to dance in combat. The Gorath weapons missed as the ancient warship twisted through space. Fire, Admiral Daeho said quietly. The Indomitable's main guns spoke for the first time in 500 years. The sound was like thunder. The first Gorath ship exploded. The second lost its engines. The third tried to run and took a hit that tore it in half. The fourth ship fled at full speed, its commander screaming warnings about ghosts and demons. On the bridge, everyone was silent. They had just watched an ancient human warship destroy 3 modern Gorath vessels in less than 2 minutes. Admiral Daeho stood. Dr. Park, I need to know everything about the current political situation. Lieutenant Hyun, I need a full status report on Earth's military capabilities. And someone find me a map of the solar system. We have work to do. What kind of work? Minji asked. The Admiral looked at her, with eyes that had seen humanity's greatest defeat, and had just delivered its first victory in 500 years. We're going to remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us in the first place. The human fleet gathered in orbit above Mars one last time. 16 warships, their hulls scarred from battle, their crews exhausted but determined. This might be the last time they were all together. Admiral Daeho stood on the Indomitable's bridge looking at the faces on his screens. Captains and commanders, some from 500 years ago, some from today. All of them ready to die for humanity's freedom. War Commander Salkith is bringing 120 ships to destroy Earth, Daeho said. We can't beat that fleet in direct combat, so we're not going to try. Commander Jihi brought up a tactical map. The Gorath supply chain runs through the Haven system, 6 light weeks from here. Without supplies, Salkith's fleet can't sustain a long siege. We hit their logistics, we hurt them. Captain An Minho of the Defiant grinned. Let me guess. You want someone to lead Salkith on a chase while the main fleet attacks Haven? Exactly. Take 3 ships. The fastest ones. Make Salkith think you're the main threat. Keep him busy. That's a suicide mission, Admiral. I know. That's why I'm asking for volunteers, not giving orders. Every captain immediately volunteered. Daiho had to choose 3. An got the Defiant. 2 other captains, Park Kyung and Ryumina, got the THS Relentless and THS Storm, respectively. 3 ships against 120. You'll die, Dr. Songborum said quietly. Maybe, An replied, but we'll make them chase us across the whole system first. By the time they catch us, you'll have crippled their supply chain. The fleet divided. Commander Jihi took 13 ships toward Haven. Captain An took 3 ships toward the outer system. And Admiral Daiho kept the Indomitable and the THS Valiant at Earth. 2 ships? Lieutenant Hyun asked. Against Salkith's entire fleet? We're not fighting his entire fleet, Daiho said. Just making him think twice about bombing Earth. Sometimes the threat of resistance is as good as resistance itself. On Earth's surface, resistance cells prepared for the coming battle. Governor Lim Hyorin, a leader of the underground movement, organized millions of humans. They seized weapons. They took over communication centers. They prepared to fight in the streets if necessary. Dr. Bayek Jiwon, a scientist who had documented Gorath crimes for decades, met with Daiho privately. Admiral, I need to tell you something, she said. The Gorath didn't just defeat humanity 500 years ago. They erased you, every record of your victories. Every tactical manual, every story of human resistance. They made you into myths so vague that modern humans thought the old stories were exaggerations. Why? Daiho asked. Because they were afraid. During the First Contact War, humanity fought with an adaptability that terrified them. You were outnumbered and outgunned, but you kept finding ways to win. The Gorath realized that destroying Earth wasn't enough. They had to destroy the idea of human resistance. And now that idea is back? Yes. And they'll do anything to kill it again. War Commander Salkith's fleet arrived at Jupiter Station. 120 warships, each one a testament to Gorath military might. Salkith was confident, arrogant. He had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. We'll approach Earth and demand surrender, he told his officers. When they refuse, we'll begin orbital bombardment. The planet will burn, and every species in the galaxy will remember what happens to those who defy us. But then his sensors detected movement. 3 human ships moving fast, attacking Gorath outposts near Saturn. 3 ships? Salkith laughed. They send 3 ships against my fleet? They're causing significant damage, Commander, his tactical officer reported. They've destroyed 2 supply depots and a repair station. Then we'll crush them first. Send 20 ships to intercept. Captain An watched the Gorath ships approach. 20 against his 3. Not good odds, but he didn't need to win. He just needed to survive long enough to be annoying. All ships, evasive pattern Delta. Lead them away from Earth, make them chase us. The 3 human ships scattered. They used Saturn's rings as cover, diving into the ice and rock where the larger Gorath ships couldn't follow. They launched missiles and then fled before the enemy could return fire. It was frustrating for the Gorath, infuriating, like trying to catch smoke. I want those ships destroyed, Salkith ordered. Send 40 more ships. Commander, that's over half our screening force, his officer protested. Do it. I won't be made a fool by 3 ancient wrecks. Salkith was so focused on the 3 ships harassing him that he didn't notice 13 other human ships making the jump to Haven system. By the time his intelligence reported the attack, it was too late. Commander Jihi led the assault on Haven with cold precision. The system was lightly defended. The Gorath never expected anyone to attack their supply hub. They thought their military might make them untouchable. They were wrong. The human ships tore through the defenses. Supply ships were destroyed. Fuel depots exploded. Repair stations were crippled. In 6 hours, Jihye's fleet had devastated the infrastructure that kept Salkith's armada operational. Commander, we've received word from Captain An, her communications officer said. Salkith has committed 60 ships to hunting them down. They're leading him on a chase through the outer system. Good, that gives us time. Continue operations. Destroy everything the Gorath can use to resupply. Back near Saturn, Captain An's 3 ships were in serious trouble. 60 Gorath warships were hunting them, and even the best pilots couldn't dodge that many enemies forever. The Relentless took a direct hit. Captain Park Kyung's voice crackled across the channel. Engines failing. I can't maintain speed. Eject your crew and scuttle the ship, On ordered. No time. Tell Earth we fought well. The Relentless turned and charged directly at the Gorath fleet. It was a suicide run, but Park made it count. Her ship rammed a Gorath cruiser at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire. 2 ships left, Captain Ryumina said grimly. How long do we keep running? As long as we can. Every minute we keep them busy is a minute Earth has to prepare. At Earth, Admiral Daiho watched long-range sensors. Salkith's main fleet was approaching, 60 ships still hunting On, 60 more coming straight for Earth. 2 ships against 60, Hyun said. This is insane. Insane is what we do best, Daiho replied. He opened a channel to the Gorath fleet. War Commander Salkith, this is Admiral Kang Daiho. I'm told you plan to destroy Earth. Salkith's face appeared on screen. He was a massive creature, reptilian and cruel. Admiral Daiho, the ghost of Terra, I've read about you. You were a good commander 500 years ago. But times change. Surrender now and I'll make the bombardment quick. Your people won't suffer long. No, Daiho said simply. No? We're not surrendering. We're not running. This is our world. You want it, you'll have to take it. And we'll make you pay for every meter of ground. Salkith smiled. Brave words. But I have 60 warships and you have 2. The mathematics are simple. Mathematics aren't everything. You'll learn that. The channel closed. Salkith gave the order to attack. The Indomitable and the Valiant prepared for battle. On Earth's surface, millions of humans watched the sky. They knew what was coming. They knew they might all die, but they stood ready anyway. The battle began at dawn. Salkith's fleet opened fire from orbit. The 2 human ships moved to intercept, their weapons blazing. It was like watching 2 wolves try to fight a pack of bears. For 3 hours, the battle raged. The Indomitable took hit after hit. Its shields failed. Its armor cracked. But Admiral Daiho kept fighting. He used every trick he knew. Every tactic from 500 years of war. The Valiant wasn't as lucky. A direct hit to its reactor forced the crew to evacuate. Lieutenant Hyun watched the ship die. We're down to 1 ship, he said. 1 ship against 60. Then we make that 1 ship count, Daiho replied. On the surface, Governor Lim's resistance fighters attacked Gorath ground installations. They seized weapons. They captured communication arrays. They broadcast the battle to the entire solar system. Let everyone see. Let everyone know. Humans were fighting. Then, just when it seemed like the Indomitable couldn't survive another minute, something miraculous happened. Commander Jihye's fleet returned from Haven. 13 ships, their weapons still hot from battle, dropped out of FTL directly behind Salkith's fleet. Sorry we're late, Jihye said over the channel. Had some supply depots to destroy. Ready to finish this? Captain On's remaining ships returned from the other side of the system. They were damaged and low on ammunition, but they were still fighting. 16 human ships against 60. Still terrible odds, but much better than before. Admiral Daiho's voice rang across all channels. All human vessels, this is Admiral Daiho, full offensive. Make them remember this day. The human fleet attacked with coordinated fury. They fought with desperation and skill and 500 years of anger. They fought for Earth, for freedom, for the right to exist as equals in the galaxy. And slowly, impossibly, the Gorath fleet began to break. Ships that had never known defeat started to retreat. Commanders who had crushed a dozen rebellions found themselves losing to an enemy they had beaten centuries ago. Salkith watched his fleet fall apart and couldn't understand it. How are they doing this? Inquisitor Vex, watching from her observation post, finally understood. Because they refuse to lose. Because they're fighting for something more important than orders or territory. The Indomitable floated in space above Earth. Inside, more people were waking from their long sleep. Each one went through the same shock. The same horror. The same moment when they learned that everything they fought for had been lost. Commander Yoon Jihye was the second person to wake. She had been Admiral Daiho's closest friend, and his second in command. When she stepped out of her cryopod and saw him, she smiled. Then she saw his face and knew something was terribly wrong. How bad? She asked. We lost 500 years ago. Earth surrendered. Humanity has been under Gorath occupation ever since. Jihye was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened her uniform. Well, that's annoying. What's the plan? That was why Daiho valued her. No panic, no despair. Just focus on what came next. Dr. Songborum woke next. She was the ship's chief medical officer, and she immediately went to work checking the other cryopods. Her report was grim. Out of 2,000 crew members, only 247 could be safely revived. The rest had died in their sleep over the centuries. "We have one ship and 247 people," Jihi said as they gathered on the bridge. "The Goroth have thousands of ships and billions of soldiers. Those aren't good odds." "We're not trying to fight the whole Goroth military," Deho replied. He looked at Dr. Park Minji. "Tell me about the resistance." Minji pulled up information on the screens. "There are groups all over the solar system. Humans who remember the old stories, who refuse to accept that we should be ruled. But they're scattered. They have few weapons, no ships. They've been waiting for something to rally around." "They have something now," Deho said. "We are that something." Lieutenant Hyun spoke up. "Admiral, I've been checking the ship's systems. We have 40 fighter craft in the hangar. They're old, but they look functional." "Show me." They walked to the hangar bay. The fighters sat in neat rows, covered in dust but perfectly preserved. They were sleek and deadly, designed for combat in an era when humanity fought as equals against alien empires. Hyun approached one and touched its hull. Lights flickered on. The fighter's computer spoke to him. "Pilot identification. Lieutenant Choi Hyun. Genetic analysis indicates descendant of fighter pilot Han Dae-sung, killed in action at Neptune's gate. It is an honor to serve with his bloodline." Hyun stepped back, shocked. "It knows who I am. It knows my ancestor." "These machines have long memories," Deho said. "Everyone who died in the First War they remember. And now we'll help them finish what we started." Over the next 3 days, the Indomitable became a hive of activity. The crew woke one by one and joined the mission. Each had to process the loss, grieve for the world they knew, and then choose to keep fighting. Minji provided intelligence about modern Earth. The Goroth occupation was thorough. They controlled all space travel, all advanced technology, all communication networks. Humans were allowed to live, but only as second-class citizens in their own system. But she also told them about the resistance cells. There was a large group on Mars, working as terraforming laborers but secretly preparing for rebellion. There were miners in the asteroid belt who had hidden weapons and supplies. There were scientists who had preserved forbidden knowledge. "They've been waiting," Minji said. "My whole life I heard stories about the old days, about when humans walked among the stars as equals. Most people thought they were just stories. But some of us believed. We've been preparing." Commander Jihye studied the tactical displays. "Mars makes sense as our next target. Large population, strong resistance presence. If we can secure Mars, we'll have a base of operations." "The Goroth won't let us take Mars without a fight," Deho said. "Good. Let them come. I want them to see what we can do." While they planned, Hyun trained new fighter pilots. Many of Minji's team had some flight experience, and the awakened crew included several pilots. But they needed more. So Hyun taught them everything he knew, and the old fighter craft taught them the rest. One young pilot named Jin Seok was particularly talented. He was only 19 years old, but he flew like he was born for it. When Hyun asked him why he volunteered, Jin's answer was simple. "My grandmother told me stories about humans who fought wars in space, about ships that could destroy planets. I always thought she was making it up. But she wasn't, was she? You're real. The old fleet was real, and if you're back, then maybe we can be free." On the 5th day, they received a message from Mars. It came on an old military frequency that hadn't been used in 500 years. Someone down there had been listening, waiting. The message was from Captain Nam Taeyang, commander of the Mars Resistance. His voice cracked with emotion as he spoke. "If this is really Admiral Deho of the Terran fleet, if this isn't some Goroth trick, then please respond. We've been waiting so long. So many of us have died waiting. Tell us you're real." Deho recorded a reply. "Captain Nam, this is Admiral Kang Deho. We are real. We are coming to Mars. Gather your people. It's time to fight back." When the message reached Mars, 3,000 resistance fighters emerged from hiding. They came from mines and factories and hidden tunnels. They brought weapons they had built in secret, skills they had practiced in the dark, hope they had carried for generations. The Indomitable set course for Mars. But as they traveled, another signal came in. This one was from the Goroth Military Command. Admiral Thex, commander of the Goroth Occupation Forces, sent a message to Deho. His voice dripped with arrogance. Admiral Deho, you destroyed 4 of my ships. That was impressive for primitives. But I am bringing 30 warships to Mars. You have 1 ship. You have untrained fighters. You have no chance. Surrender now and I will make your deaths quick. Deho listened to the message. Then he looked at Jihi. 30 ships. What do you think? I think Admiral Thex fights the way all Gorath fight. By the book. Predictable. He'll come in with standard formation, try to intimidate us into surrender, then overwhelm us with numbers, so we don't fight him the way he expects. Exactly. When the Indomitable reached Mars, the Resistance was waiting. Captain Nam came aboard and stood before Admiral Deho. The old Resistance commander had tears in his eyes. I never thought I'd see this day, Nam said. My father told me about you, about the old fleet. I half believed him. I'm sorry I doubted. You kept the flame alive, Deho replied. That's what matters. Now we need your people ready to fight. This won't be easy, we know. We've been training for this our whole lives. Engineer Lee Sora approached with data tablets. Admiral, I've been maintaining hidden workshops on Mars for 20 years. I have weapon designs, ship components, technology reverse-engineered from fragments of old systems. My grandmother gave me the plans before she died. She said someone would come who could use them. Deho looked at the designs. They were crude compared to the Indomitable's systems, but they would work. Missiles, railguns, shield generators, all built from scraps and forbidden knowledge. You've been preparing for war, he said. We've been preparing for freedom, Sora replied. The Indomitable spent 2 days in Mars orbit. The crew helped the Resistance organize into proper military units. Dr. Song set up medical facilities. Hyun trained fighter pilots. Every person who could fight was given a role. Then Admiral Thex arrived with his 30 ships. The Gorath fleet was impressive. Modern warships, all of them larger and more powerful than the Indomitable. They formed up in perfect military formation, a wall of metal and firepower designed to break the spirit of any enemy. Thex sent another message. This is your last chance, humans. Look at my fleet. Look at your single ship. This is madness, surrender. On the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Deho studied the enemy formation. He saw the weak points, the predictable patterns, the arrogance that made them strong but also made them vulnerable. Commander Jihye, what do you see? I see an enemy who thinks war is about size and strength, who doesn't understand that war is about will and adaptation. Exactly. Lieutenant Hyun, deploy all fighters. Captain Nam, have your surface batteries ready. Lee Sora, get those missiles armed. Admiral, Minji asked, what's the plan? Deho smiled. We're going to teach the Gorath why they were afraid of humanity 500 years ago. We're going to show them that the size of your fleet doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it. He opened a channel to Admiral Thex. This is Admiral Kang Deho to Gorath forces. You want us to surrender because you think you've already won. But you've made a mistake. You forgot that humans don't surrender. We adapt, we improvise. We win. Brave words from a dead man, Thex replied. We'll see. Indomitable out. Deho turned to his crew. His people. Some from 500 years ago. Some from today. All of them human. All of them ready. All ships and fighters, this is Admiral Deho. We're outnumbered. We're outgunned. The enemy thinks this will be easy. Let's show them they're wrong. Let's show them why the galaxy learned to fear Earth. Attack pattern Omega. Execute. The Indomitable dropped toward Mars, using the planet's gravity to accelerate to impossible speeds. The fighters scattered in 40 different directions, making it impossible to track them all. The surface batteries opened fire, crude missiles rising to meet the Gorath fleet. And Admiral Thex, who had come expecting an easy victory, realized too late that he was fighting humans. And humans never made anything easy. The battle for Mars began with fire and chaos. The Indomitable dove through the upper atmosphere, flames trailing behind it as friction heated its shields. Admiral Thex's fleet tried to track the movement, but the ancient human warship moved in ways their computers couldn't predict. Impossible, Thex shouted on his command deck. No ship that size should be able to perform those maneuvers. But the Indomitable was designed by humans who understood that survival in space combat meant breaking every rule. It wasn't the biggest ship, it wasn't the strongest, but it was built by people who knew how to fight when the odds were against them. The 40 fighters launched from the Indomitable spread across the battlefield like angry insects. Each pilot flew with a desperation that made them dangerous. They knew they would probably die. They flew anyway. Young Jin Seok found himself in the cockpit of a fighter built 500 years before he was born. The machine's computer spoke to him constantly, teaching him, guiding him. Enemy cruiser at bearing 270. Shields are concentrated forward. Engines are vulnerable. Recommend attack run from below. Jin followed the instruction. His fighter screamed through space, dodging fire from 3 different Gorath ships. He released his missiles at point-blank range and pulled up hard. Behind him, the enemy cruiser's engines exploded. First kill confirmed, the fighter's computer said. Your ancestors would be proud. On Mars's surface, Lee Sora watched her missiles launch. They were crude things built from smuggled parts and forbidden knowledge. Half of them would probably miss. The other half might explode prematurely. But they were weapons, and weapons gave humans a chance. 3 of her missiles found targets. A Gorath destroyer took damage to its sensor array. Another ship's shields flickered and failed. It wasn't much, but it was something. Admiral Daeho stood on the Indomitable's bridge, watching tactical displays that showed 30 enemy ships trying to kill his one ship. Commander Jihye called out damage reports, shields at 60%, hull breach on deck 7, weapons still operational. Keep moving, Daeho ordered. Don't let them pin us down. Target their formation's weak point. The carrier in the center. The Indomitable came around Mars at full speed and fired its main guns. The weapons had been silent for 500 years, but they remembered their purpose. Energy beams cut through space and slammed into the Gorath carrier's shields. Thex watched his carrier take damage and snarled orders. All ships focus fire on that ancient wreck. Destroy it. But focusing fire meant breaking formation, and breaking formation meant creating opportunities. Lieutenant Hyun, manning the weapons console, saw the opening. Admiral, 3 ships have moved out of position to target us. They have exposed their flanks. Fighters, this is Indomitable actual. Enemy ships at coordinates marked on your screens. They're vulnerable. Hit them now. The fighters swarmed. 15 small craft against 3 large ships. Under normal circumstances, the fighters would have been swatted aside. But these weren't normal circumstances. These were humans fighting for their freedom, and they fought like demons. The first Gorath ship lost its engines. The second took so much damage it had to withdraw. The third exploded when a lucky missile hit its reactor. On his command deck, Admiral Thex felt something he hadn't felt in his long military career. Doubt. His 30 ships should have crushed this resistance in minutes. Instead, they'd been fighting for an hour and had lost 7 ships. How are they doing this? He demanded. Inquisitor Vex, watching from her observation ship at a safe distance, understood. She had studied human military history. She knew what made them dangerous. They're not fighting to win, she said quietly. They're fighting to survive. And they're very good at it. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Indomitable took more damage with each passing minute. Its shields failed. Hull plating cracked. Systems began shutting down. But it kept fighting. On Mars, Captain Nam's resistance fighters seized the moment. With the Gorath fleet distracted, they attacked occupation facilities across the planet. Within hours, they had liberated half the major settlements. Dr. Song Borum worked frantically in the medical bay, treating wounded crew members. The ship was falling apart around her, but she kept working. That's what humans did. They kept working even when everything seemed hopeless. Then, just when it seemed like the Indomitable couldn't take any more damage, something changed. Commander Jihee's console lit up with new contacts. Admiral, we have new ships entering the system. 13 vessels, human signatures. Admiral Daeho felt his heart race. The other ships, the other hidden vessels, they were coming. The THS Defiant arrived first, its weapons already charging. Captain An Minho's voice came across the channel, full of rage and joy. Sorry we're late, Admiral. Had to dig ourselves out. Hope you saved some enemies for us. Behind the Defiant came 12 more warships, all of them ancient, all of them ready to fight. And behind them came 3 more ships from Captain An's strike group, returning from their mission. Suddenly, Admiral Thex wasn't facing one old ship. He was facing 16. This is impossible, Thex whispered. They were all destroyed. All the human warships were destroyed. They were hidden, Inquisitor Vex said. Someone 500 years ago knew this day would come. They prepared for it. Admiral Daeho opened a channel to all ships, human and Gorath alike. All human vessels, this is Admiral Daeho, full offensive. Show them what happens when they threaten Earth. The 16 human warships attacked as one. They used tactics the Goroth had never seen, maneuvers that broke every rule of conventional warfare. They fought like cornered animals because that's what they were, and it was terrifying. The Goroth fleet, already battered from 3 hours of fighting, couldn't handle the sudden onslaught. Ships that had seemed invincible began to break. Their perfect formations collapsed into chaos. Admiral Thex watched his fleet fall apart and made a decision. All ships retreat! Retreat to Jupiter Station. His ships turned and fled. The mighty Goroth military force, sent to crush a rebellion, ran away from an enemy they had beaten 500 years ago. The human fleet didn't pursue. They couldn't. Most of the ships were barely functional. The Indomitable was held together mostly by hope and stubborn engineering. But they had won. On Mars, 3,000 resistance fighters emerged from their hiding places and celebrated. They had fought their oppressors and survived. They had proved that humans could still fight. Dr. Park Minji stood on the Indomitable's bridge, watching the Goroth ships flee. She had tears on her face. We did it. We actually did it. We survived, Admiral Deho corrected. That's not the same as winning. The Goroth will return with more ships, more weapons. They'll be ready for us next time. So what do we do? Deho looked at the tactical display showing all 16 human warships. Damaged, outdated, but functional. And more importantly, crewed by people who refuse to give up. We grow stronger. Commander Jihi, what's the status of the hidden ship locations? We've recovered all 14 vessels from the primary caches, Admiral. But according to the old records, there were more. Smaller ships, support vessels, supply depots. They're scattered throughout the system. Then we find them. We wake every crew we can. We arm every human willing to fight. When the Goroth come back, we'll be ready. Captain Nam came aboard the Indomitable, his uniform torn and bloody but his smile wide. Admiral, Mars is ours. The Resistance has secured the major cities. The Goroth ground forces are surrendering or fleeing. How many casualties? Dr. Song asked. Too many. But fewer than expected. We thought this would be a suicide mission. It still might be, Deho said. This was one battle. The war is far from over. A young private named Jin Seok approached. He had survived his first combat mission. His fighter was damaged, but he had made it back. Admiral, sir, I just wanted to say thank you. My whole life I was told humans were weak, that we couldn't fight, that we should just accept our place. But today I fought, and I didn't feel weak. Deho put a hand on the young man's shoulder. You were never weak. They just made you believe you were. That was their real weapon, not their ships or their soldiers. The lie that we couldn't fight back. Over the next few days, the captured Goroth ships were stripped for technology. Lee Sora's engineers studied every system, learning and adapting. The Resistance on Mars began training in earnest. Weapons were distributed, ships were repaired, and throughout the solar system, other Resistance cells heard the news. Mars was free. The legendary Admiral Deho had returned. The old fleet was back. Hope spread like fire. But in the dark reaches of space beyond Jupiter, Admiral Thex made his report to the Goroth High Command. He told them everything. The ancient human ships, the tactics they hadn't seen in 500 years, the fighting spirit that should have been broken but wasn't. The response was immediate and harsh. Thex was relieved of command. His replacement would be War Commander Salkith, a veteran of a dozen subjugation campaigns. And Salkith was given a fleet of 120 warships. His orders were simple. Destroy the human resistance. If they wouldn't surrender, destroy Earth itself. Make an example that would terrify every subjugated species in the galaxy. Inquisitor Vex, listening to these orders, felt something unusual. Not fear exactly, but concern. She had studied humans. She knew their history. The silence after the battle was strange. For 500 years, Earth had lived under Goroth rule. Now suddenly the skies were free. The enemy fleet had retreated. The impossible had happened, but Admiral Deho knew it wasn't over. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at damage reports. His ship was barely holding together. Half his fleet was crippled. His crew was exhausted, and the Goroth would return. We can't fight them again, Commander Jihi said quietly. Not like this. We need time to repair, to rebuild, to train more crews. We won't get it, Deho replied. The Goroth High Council won't accept this defeat. They'll come back with everything they have. Lieutenant Hune brought up communication intercepts. Admiral, we're seeing something strange. The Gorath military channels are full of arguments. Some want to send more ships. Others are questioning whether they can actually beat us. Fear, Dr. Bekjiwan said. She had come aboard after the battle. You've made them afraid again. That's why they subjugated humanity in the first place. They were terrified of what you represented. On Mars, the Resistance celebrated. 3,000 fighters who had hidden in tunnels and mines now walked freely. They had fought the Gorath and won. Captain Nam stood among his people, tears streaming down his face. We did it, he kept saying. We actually did it, but celebration was brief. Reality set in quickly. Yes, they had won a battle, but the Gorath controlled thousands of worlds. They had resources beyond counting. One defeat wouldn't stop them. Deep in Gorath space, the High Council met. Ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia debated what to do about humanity. Some wanted to glass Earth and be done with it. Others worried about the cost. We've lost over 80 ships fighting them, one counselor said. 80! Against an enemy with only 16 vessels. If we attack again and lose, other subjugated species will rebel. Then we send enough ships that we can't lose, another replied. 500 ships. 1,000. Overwhelm them completely. But Consul Vren of the Ashen Collective, a neutral species, spoke up. And what will that cost you? How many ships will you lose taking Earth? How many soldiers will die? Is it worth it? They defied us, a Gorath commander roared. If we let them go unpunished, the entire Confederacy will collapse. Or, Vren said carefully, you could negotiate. Give them what they want. Recognize their sovereignty. Make peace. The idea was shocking, unthinkable. The Gorath didn't negotiate with subjugated species. They ruled through strength and fear, but they were afraid now. Afraid of what it would cost to destroy humanity. Afraid of what would happen if they tried and failed again. Inquisitor Vex was given a mission. Travel to Earth. Speak with Admiral Deho. Explore the possibility of peace. She didn't want to go. She had spent her career crushing rebellions. Now she was being sent to negotiate with rebels she had failed to crush. It was humiliating, but orders were orders. The Indomitable was in orbit above Earth when Vex's ship arrived. It came alone, broadcasting peace signals. Admiral Deho debated whether to destroy it or let it approach. It could be a trick, Captain An warned. Load it with explosives and detonate it near our ships. Or it could be genuine, Deho replied. And if there's a chance to stop the fighting without more deaths, we have to take it. He allowed the ship to dock. Inquisitor Vex came aboard with no weapons, no guards. Just herself and a datapad full of proposals. She stood before Admiral Deho in the Indomitable's conference room. This was the human who had defeated 3 Gorath fleets, who had survived 500 years of cryosleep, who had inspired an entire species to fight back. He looked tired, old, human. Admiral Kang Deho, Vex began formally. I come with a proposal from the Gorath High Council. A ceasefire. Negotiations for peace, and what kind of peace? Recognition of human sovereignty within the Sol system. Removal of all Gorath military forces. The right to develop your own technology and military. In exchange, you agree not to expand beyond Sol for 50 years. You accept Confederacy observers. You participate in mutual defense agreements. Deho was quiet for a long moment. In other words, we stay in our cage. Just a slightly bigger cage. It's better than war. Better than bombardment and death. You've won your freedom. Take it. At what cost? We surrender our right to explore, to grow. We accept permanent oversight. This isn't freedom. It's just a nicer version of subjugation. Vex leaned forward. Admiral, I've studied your military history. You're a brilliant commander. But you have 16 ships. Most of them are damaged. You have perhaps 5,000 trained fighters. The Gorath Confederacy has tens of thousands of warships and billions of soldiers. If this war continues, you will lose. Maybe, Deho said. Or maybe we'll keep fighting until the cost of defeating us is too high. How many ships can you afford to lose? How many soldiers? How many years of war? Is that really what you want? More death? More suffering? Deho looked at Commander Jihi, at Lieutenant Hyun, at Dr. Beck. All of them exhausted. All of them scarred by battle. All of them ready to keep fighting if he asked. What I want is simple, he said finally. I want humanity to be free. Truly free. Not locked in our home system. Not watched by foreign observers. Free to build, to explore, to become whatever we choose to be. Can you give me that? Not immediately. But in time, perhaps. First, you must prove you can coexist peacefully. We've been peaceful for 500 years. It didn't help us. You were conquered. That's different from being peaceful. Now you have a chance to build something better. The negotiations took 3 weeks, back and forth. Arguments and compromises. Sometimes Deho wanted to tell Vex to leave and never come back. But he looked at his crew, his people. They deserved peace. They deserved a chance to rebuild. Finally, they reached an agreement. The Treaty of Terra. Humanity would regain sovereignty over the Sol system. All Gorith forces would withdraw. Humans could develop their own technology and military without restriction within Sol. In exchange, they couldn't expand to other systems for 50 years. They had to accept limited Confederacy observation. They had to participate in mutual defense agreements. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. The treaty was signed on Mars, where the Resistance had won its first victory. Admiral Deho signed for humanity. Inquisitor Vex signed for the Gorath. Consul Vren witnessed as a neutral party. News of the treaty spread across Earth. Some humans celebrated. Finally, after 500 years, they were free. Others were angry. 50 years trapped in Sol? Observation? This was just another form of control. Dr. Park Minji watched the signing and felt conflicted. Is this really victory? She asked her brother. Hyun thought about it. It's survival. That's enough for now. 6 weeks after the treaty signing, a ceremony was held on Mars. Thousands of humans gathered. Former resistance fighters, awakened crew members, citizens from Earth and the colonies. They came to remember those who died and to celebrate those who survived. Admiral Deho stood before them. He didn't give a grand speech. That wasn't his style. He spoke simply and honestly. 500 years ago, we lost. We lost badly. Our world was conquered. Our ships destroyed. Our history erased. For 5 centuries, humanity lived under foreign rule. Many of you were born into that world. You were told you were weak, that you should accept your place, that humans weren't meant to fight. He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd, young and old, scarred and whole, all of them human. But some of you didn't believe that. You kept the old stories alive. You remembered that once humanity walked among the stars as equals. You prepared, you waited, and when we returned, you were ready to fight. Today, we are free. Not completely, not yet. We're still limited, still watched. But we're free enough to rebuild. Free enough to remember who we are. Free enough to teach our children that humans don't break. To everyone who fought. Everyone who died. Everyone who refused to forget, thank you. The fleet remembers. Humanity remembers. The crowd was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. The sound echoed across Mars. Private Jin Seok stood with his fellow pilots. Do you think we'll have to fight again? He asked pilot O'Daven. Daven looked at the Indomitable in orbit above them. Scarred, damaged, but still flying. Probably. But now they know what happens when they push humanity too far. High above, the Indomitable held position alongside 14 other human warships. Lights glowed in the darkness. Crews worked to repair damage, to prepare for whatever came next. Admiral Deho stood on his bridge one last time that day. Commander Jihi joined him. What happens now? She asked. We rebuild. We train more crews. We build more ships. We prepare. For what? For the day when we're strong enough that no one dares threaten us again. For the day when we can leave Sol without asking permission. For the day when humanity walks among the stars not as subjects but as equals. And if the Gorith try to stop us? Deho smiled. It was a hard smile, a warrior's smile. Then we remind them why they buried us instead of just killing us. They were afraid 500 years ago. They should still be afraid now. Far below on Earth's surface, people looked up at the stars. For the first time in 500 years, those stars belonged to humanity again. Not all of them, not yet, but enough. And in hidden workshops and secret training facilities, the next generation began preparing, learning, building.